name is Steve Callahan, 33 Pederzini Drive here in Medfield, and I am a co-chair of the Warrant Committee.
I'm Bob Sliney. I'm the co-chair of the Warrant Committee, 6 Overfield Drive.
And today we have continued a tradition we started last year, and we've asked a new member of the Warrant Committee to join us, Ashley LeDuc. And so Ashley, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Steve. Bob, I'm happy to be here. I'm Ashley LeDuc. I moved to Medfield from Boston 3.5 years ago. I have a kindergartner and a 3rd grade children, and I moved to town and quickly got involved, whether I meant to or not, in being a part of this wonderful community. I volunteered as co-chair for Hinckley Helpers, which built the new playground at Hinckley Playground, and got to work a lot with the Park and Rec Department and Commission, and learn a lot from the town administration on how the town works. So I'm thrilled to be a part of the Warrant Committee.
Well, we are thrilled to have you on the Warrant Committee. I think you've done a lot in the short time frame you've been in town, and you've made tremendous contribution to the committee in the first year, and we're looking forward to many more years with you. So today we have this is our first of 2 video recordings, and the first one, the one we're going to do now, is on the fiscal update of town finances. And then the second one, which you can watch later, is a video recording on non-routine articles that you will see at town meeting. This year, as in every year, Ashley mentioned her background. The moderator of the town appoints members of the Warrant Committee, and they typically try to do a good job of covering the demographics of the town. We have on the Warrant Committee members, as you heard from Bob and I, that have been around, seniors, I guess we're seniors now, that have been around for 30 plus years. We have working moms and dads with children, on the committee, in the schools on the committee. So there's 9 of us, and we're dedicated to hearing presentations from the department heads, talking about budgets for FY26, as well as addressing our fiscal status relative to sort of forecasted expenditures and proposed projects that are coming up. We form an opinion on passage or dismissal for each of the articles that you'll see in the warrant report at town meeting, and you'll be asked to vote on. And our deliberations are summarized in the Warrant Committee reports. For every article, it's printed in the warrant, so you have the benefit of understanding what we considered and how we voted and why we voted the way we did. I think in summary, the Warrant Committee, Bob, exists really as a advisory committee, right? We exist because of the town charter and Mass General Law, but we're really there to advise town meeting in all aspects of town meeting, basically.
That's right, and the 9 members really present a significant amount of time that they spend. We have 13 meetings, but and they'll last over 2 hours each. But in anticipation of each meeting, each member will spend 2 hours in preparation. And in addition to that, we meet with each one of the departments, both in the school and the town, and each member of the Warrant Committee is assigned to a department, so they become more familiar. We get an opportunity to meet the directors, to meet the town managers, and those of you volunteering in the different departments. So it really gives us a full perspective of where the town is. So it's a real opportunity to be the eyes and ears for you, because we're basically an advisory group on which you will vote, and we hope you can see that perspective that we provide so you can make your final decision in voting.
Well said. So as we look at the fiscal update for the town, it's important to note that our budget has to address a lot of different areas of town finance. This past year, past summer, we started on an undertaking to update our financial policies and objectives. And I sort of, it hadn't been updated since 2017, and so it needed an update. It is, I would call it sort of our North Star of how we undertake everything. There's a lot of trade-offs and decisions that we have to make, but this helps sort of put boundaries and parameters around, along with objectives of what we're trying to accomplish. And I recommend it, if you have the time, to read that document. So the first thing we do is we look at our operating budget. As you can see here, our main area of providing services to the community through school and municipal budgets, and that's the area that's most familiar to the town. However, it's also important to address our capital needs and our capital budget, and so we need to ensure we're properly maintaining our facilities and providing appropriate and efficient equipment for our departments to use, particularly our public safety department and public works departments. They have big capital needs. And we also need to address our reserve accounts, making sure that we are appropriately funding these to protect the town in case of an emergency or a recession. Reserves are also important for our long-term liabilities, including pension and OPEB liabilities. So we try to address all of these items in relation to our tax bill. And as you know, we're primarily financed with our real estate property taxes. And as you can imagine, it's very difficult to balance and manage, and there's a lot of trade-offs that occur. But we do our best and get the priorities straight, and make recommendations based upon, again, those financial policies and objectives that we set out in that document. So some of the key takeaways for the FY26 budget. The first and most important takeaway is that the operating budget is balanced without the need for a Prop 2.5 override. And secondly, as you will see, we are proposing prudent uses of free cash, focusing on important priorities around stabilization funds and one-time needs. And as always, we continue our discipline of achieving yearly operating budgets that are financially sustainable within the Prop 2.5 framework. We are constantly looking at projections. We want to know that if we add expenditures to the budget, that can be sustained over multiple years, and so that's important to us. We also, as I mentioned, look at our financial policies and make sure that operating expenditures are covered by current operating revenues, not recurring revenue sources. So one area that has become clear for capital budgets is that for very large projects, building projects primarily, it's clear that as we look at the revenue from a municipal building stabilization fund that was an override passed in 2018 to provide some revenue to care for our buildings, that revenue source is not enough to deal with the normal routines, things that have to occur in our buildings, and it can't cover the big items. And these are big items that have been identified in a 20-year capital plan. There's things like roofs, for our schools, which is a critical need that's been identified as needing to be taken care of in the next couple of years. So both school and town officials, they really had a hard time this year of meeting our budget guidance. Every year we provide some budget guidance to all the departments. And as a result, it seems to be getting harder and harder for departments to meet that guidance. As you can see, these are unfulfilled needs for the school and the town departments. You know, the numbers have been pressured primarily because of increases in our fixed costs. We have this past year we had health insurance rates for employees increase by almost 17%. And so when that happens, it really takes away needed revenue for the departments. And the number of unfulfilled needs has doubled from FY25 to FY26 this year, as you can see. And one thing we know about unmet needs or unfulfilled needs is that they generally don't go away. And so you can see there is that doubling I mentioned. As we look at our property taxes, which is again our largest source of revenue, and how they're determined, there's two separate and independent components to the amount of property taxes that the town charges residents. The first component is those property taxes that are subject to Prop 2.5 and within the Prop 2.5 levy limitations. This is budgeted for $56 million in FY26, and it represents a 3.2% increase. That's typical for Medfield. It includes, and we'll talk about next how that's determined, but it includes new growth. And the second component of our property tax revenue is outside Prop 2.5 levy limitations. It's made up of the general fund debt service for borrowings, exempt debt borrowings. And this is for large capital projects separately voted by town residents at town meeting and elections. And the debt service is budgeted to decrease in FY26 by $488,000 to a level of $1.9 million. The good news about this is it represents a decrease in our property taxes. That $488,000 is it's a temporary tax that every time we pay off debt, it goes down and our property taxes go down. However, unless carefully managed, we'll talk later about the implications of not managing our capital in such a way as that we're reinvesting that decrease in property taxes. So those two components comprise about $58 million and represents the total property tax levy that's ultimately charged to residents. And so as you can see, the property taxes are going up at 2.2%, which is less than the 2.5% under Prop 2.5 because, as we mentioned, we're paying off that debt, and it's a reduction in our property taxes. So now let's take a look at the levy limits that we previously mentioned, the two Prop 2.5 levy limits. A lot of people think Prop 2.5 limits the increase in their tax bill to 2.5% each year. It does not. Prop 2.5 is really just a limit on the total taxes that the town can raise. And this slide really shows how the formula works. It's, as you can see, the red circle, the formula just begins with the amount from the prior year. We're allowed to increase that by 2.5%, and then we're allowed to increase for an estimate for new growth, which is basically new developments in town, not taxes from just increases in property values. Continuing with the formula, we then add in the municipal building stabilization override that we mentioned, and that's a dedicated revenue source for maintaining town buildings, and that gets us down to the total levy limit within Prop 2.5. And we've always historically taxed the maximum amount within that levy limit. So this table shows you a summary of our FY 2026 general fund operating budget revenue. The budget for 26 assumes a general fund operating budget of $74.1 million, which represents a 2.5% increase, and it's made up of the 2.2% increase in property tax levy we just reviewed, and also other revenue increases of 3.5%, both circled in red. As you can see, the total budget FY26 operating revenue is expected to increase by $1.8 million, driven by property taxes and other revenues and state aid and local receipts.
Steve, just to kind of clarify too, so this process that Steve has just outlined is one that we engage in with the town beginning in the fall. And over a period of 2 or 3 months, we work with the town to estimate where these are, to see what our borrowing or excuse me, our tax base is. And what results from that is what you hear reference to is a Warrant Committee guidance. Really what that guidance is saying, this is the amount that we have available for growth in the coming year. And we get that number to the town departments and to the schools prior to their engaging in that budget process. So in December, we give guidance out to the town administration, to the schools, to the select board, to all the key players, so they understand this is the number that we can work with within the constraints of Prop 2.5. And that gives guidance to people as they direct their budget.
Yeah, after considering our fixed costs, right? So the FY 2026 budget expenditures, from a big picture perspective, we have these needs-based requests that were included in the 26 budget. The school department budget is increasing by 3.4% or $1.5 million. It's essentially a level services budget, with most of the increase coming from existing payroll, steps, and lanes. But there is an addition of 2 FTEs in the 2026 budget. And the town department budget is increasing at 3.5% also, and is approximately $500,000. The fire department is adding 4 firefighters and paramedics, and that cost is being funded through a 3-year grant from the federal government, which is through FEMA. And the expiration of that grant, it may require us to, if in 3 years definitely, it may require us to look at either an override or elimination of positions, because our budget, doesn't have that revenue after it expires from the federal government. And so the budget also includes the new collective bargaining agreements that have been negotiated with the police and fire departments. So next, we turn to our general reserves, and here you can see a history of our reserves as a percentage of general fund operating expenditures. Our financial policy requires a minimum of 8% and a goal of no more than 10% in these reserves. And we're estimating that in FY 2026, we're going to be right in the middle at 9%. And the reserves consist of 3 areas. They consist of the general stabilization fund, unused free cash, and the warrant committee reserve. And so why do we do this? We do this because we need to have flexibility to deal with a severe, an economic downturn or an emergency that may come up. So the other reason we do it is that the buildup of these reserves is very important for our credit rating. We're going to be, hopefully in the next few years, undertaking one of the largest debt borrowings the town has ever done. And so our credit rating will be very important if and when that happens. So, as we talk about planning for financially sustainable budgets and our taxes, we have several special purpose stabilization funds to help with some of the bigger areas of our budget, such as pension obligations, the capital needs, special education costs, and deferring future costs related to an elementary school that we're undertaking feasibility studies for. And we pay a lot of close attention to these reserves, how we use them, all with the goal of trying to prepare for financially sustainable budgets and making sure we don't have spikes in our tax bills, that this is managed in a way that we're constantly looking at the future liabilities, how much can we use in these reserves, or do we have enough in the reserves? And we're trying to, always have our tax bill in focus when we do this. So the balances in FY 26 assume that all the town meeting articles impacting any of these special purpose stabilization funds will be approved at town meeting. Next, we turn to free cash. And as we like to remind our new warrant committee members, free cash is not free. It represents the accumulation of unspent budgeted expenditures and excess revenue over budgeted amounts. And it can very much fluctuate year to year, up or down, so it's very much unpredictable. We have a certified free cash balance, as you can see, as of July 1st, 2024, equal to $5.6 million. And the various proposed uses of that free cash that you'll see in the warrant are listed out on this slide. The town has a financial policy of maintaining, as part of those general reserves, a minimum unspent balance for free cash of 3% of our general fund budgeted expenditures. So this leaves us an unused free cash balance of $2.5 million, which complies with our 3% financial policy test. So as we look forward to future budget challenges and opportunities, we believe that an important message to deliver today is that the current level of services and operating budgets are not financially sustainable within the current revenue framework. Our operating budgets, both the town and the school, are very much under pressure as costs have increased greater than our revenue and Prop 2.5 limitations. While we've been able to manage this to date, it's getting harder and harder. And so some of the challenges and pressures that we face are the expiration of the teachers' collective bargaining agreement in FY 2026. Our state aid is going to continue to be under pressure. It has not kept pace with our wage inflation and cost increases. And we don't know yet with certainty how federal cuts may impact the state or any grants that we rely upon in our local aid. And then planning for a new elementary school, and we have other significant capital projects that is going to result in increases in our property taxes if ultimately approved by town meeting and voters. All these challenges, this pressure, does create opportunities, though. I think one of the opportunities that the Warrant Committee supports is an initiative to study town-owned land, potentially sale of town-owned land, consistent with our master plan, our strategic plan, and our values. We believe that there's value there that can be leveraged for use in meeting some of these challenges for the town. And we certainly think that it should be studied. Another major challenge that the town is facing is in the investment of our capital needs. The last borrowing outside of the enterprise fund that the town did was for the public safety building, and that was 10 years ago. As you can see in this graph, our debt service related to exempt debt has declined steadily from a high in 2016. That's the blue part of the graph. As we mentioned earlier, the exempt debt, or this type of debt, is outside of the Prop 2.5 limitations, and therefore it's temporary property tax increase. So every time it gets paid off, your taxes go down if it's not replaced with new debt. And as you can see from this graph, that our financial policy for debt for the town is to maintain it at a level below 10% of fund revenues, general fund revenues. Our actual debt service is much lower than that 10%. It's at 2.4%, projected to be at 2.4% of general fund revenue by 2030 if we don't issue any new debt. Currently, if no new debt is issued, we are projected to have like a $6.2 million of lost investment capacity by FY 2030. So as you can see, it's really important that we try to pay attention to when we take on these projects. We want to avoid spikes in significant spikes outside of these policy limitations. And it's also important that we advance projects for the town and replace debt that's being paid off with projects. For example, like the new roofs for the schools. You know, there's no reason why some of those can't be advanced during this period of time that we're studying building a new school. What's very clear is when there's delays in these big capital projects, it only costs more. So our property taxes may be going down in the short term, but when we have to deal with these, it's going to cost more. And so it's important that we try to pay attention to this and manage it such that we don't let too much time go by without dealing with these major capital expenditures.
And just to add to that, Steve, I think that you mentioned the demographics of the Warrant Committee is really very important, because you have 3 or 4 members who have been in town for over 30 years. We have 3 or 4 members who have been in town for less than 6, and a couple in the middle. And all of us have come to an appreciation and understanding of what the town provides and what the costs are. So what we try to do is make that consideration. We're not advocates for increasing spending. We're not advocates for any particular project. What we are is really the eyes and ears of the community to identify needs, to identify what those costs are, and can we, within that framework, prepare a tax process that is managed and doesn't have the spikes that Steve talked about. And we, at the end of that, can only bring this attention up to the folks who make the decisions. But I feel as though on the committee, it's our responsibility to raise the issue.
Yes, well said. I think, you know, we are, as a Warrant Committee, we're concerned about the delays in completing these projects. For various reasons, they've been delayed, and the financial implications and any potential implications to the future operations of some of our buildings. So as we know, there's many other capital projects besides the replacement of Dale Street that need serious consideration and evaluation. And roof replacements, I mentioned, is just one of the areas in that 20-year capital plan that you know is a significant item that's critical, that needs to be done. But many of our school roofs, if not all of them, are leaking. I think Dale Street had a 40 patches, not Dale, Blake had 40 patches this past year. And so, you know, if you had a leaky roof on your home, you wouldn't let 30 years go by without fixing it, right? So,
and those of us who live in this community have seen towns around us that have dealt with kind of panic overrides and what we're trying to do is present it to you and educate you. So I think my message is understand what the issues are and become familiar with them. So
yeah, no, that's well said. I know in the next few months the select board's going to take this 20-year plan and try to set priorities for how to tackle some of these significant capital projects and prioritize them. So next, let's take a look at our average property tax bill. This slide shows you a ranking of Medfield's property tax bill relative to 351 other communities in the state. And as you can see, the bottom of the chart, we're currently ranked as having the 25th highest average property tax relative to other towns. And this has fluctuated over the years, but the last time Medfield has had a ranking this low, remember that if you have a high ranking, you're paying high taxes. If you have a low ranking, your taxes are low relative to everyone else. So the last time we had a ranking this low was 32 years ago in 1993. And so we have historically been ranked as high as number 15 in 2019 and 2004 and 2005 after approving override votes for operating budgets or exempt debt offerings. So, the question as you look at this is say, well, you would think this would be good, right? Our taxes are low, our ranking compared to other towns and communities is pretty low. No one wants to pay more taxes, but as we've talked about, the result of this low ranking is, in our opinion, primarily the result of these deferred capital projects and not taking on that additional tax for the debt. We've deferred items, and so, I think it's important, again, that we not continue deferring some of these big items, because we know that things just get more expensive the more we delay. And so, what is obvious is that it probably will increase our ranking in future years if and when we do approve those capital projects, right? So,
Well, I think, in fairness, if people look at the town of Medfield, we would rank ourselves higher than the number 25 in the state.
yeah,
And I think that's a perspective that, as a people who come into town now, you see the property values, the home values of new residents.
Yeah.
It's above 25, the 25 number.
yeah.
So, putting things in perspective, it's very important for us to look at this in terms of town services, in terms of school services, in terms of our investments, to ensure that we don't jeopardize the position and the value that we see in the town today.
Right.
Absolutely. I also think it's important that as a new resident, I'm thinking of all the things that we need to build to create a stronger community, right? And like you mentioned, we can't continue to kick those items down the line. It has to happen.
Right, yeah,
That's fair.
yeah, well said. So the last point on our average tax bill is on this slide. You'll see that the Department of Local Services at the state level has a database that tracks trends in Medfield's average tax bill as a percentage of the Department of Revenue's income per capita. So think of it as like the average tax bill divided by the per capita income of a household that they get that data from tax returns. So our average tax bill is $13,582, and the per capita income of Medfield is $136,000. So as you can see, Medfield's average tax bill as a percentage of income is at an 18-year low. The database doesn't go back farther than 18 years, and it was at a high of 15.6% in 2007, and it's now at just under 10%. I think the takeaway from this slide is that clearly our tax bill is well managed to stay low relative to our income. It has not been increasing at the same rate of income. So our income's been going up at a higher rate than our tax bill, which means it's very well controlled. So I think, I'm sure not advancing these delayed capital projects has something to do with that. And that this might change in the future. So.
And again, just to reiterate, because then you'll see in our next discussion that we are aware of pressures on people at different income levels. So we're not advocating that we should have a spike or to clear this in or what have you, but we are advocating to educate and to be aware of what the issues are so that we can address them prudently and avoid the inevitable need for some of these investments.
Yeah.
And I think maybe what's most important out of all of this is making sure everyone comes to town meeting to vote, right?
That's a great segue.
So we have done all the homework, and you have done so much homework to get us to where we need to be and speak to the finances of the town, which I cannot do at this point. I am new. You are the brain trust. But if you want to have a hand in how our community moves forward with new buildings, with taxes, with how we save for a rainy day fund, right, you need to show up and you need to vote. And if it's 2 hours, maybe, hopefully,
Yeah.
out of a year to give your time to have a hand in your community, it's really simple.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you.
Bob, do you have any, I kind of went through a lot there. I don't know if you have anything you want, any
No, I think
closing
you touched
points you
upon
want to
all the
make?
points, and again, I think it provides a great background and a great illustration to the people in the community to see what thoughts have gone in, and to Ashley's point, we're trying to educate and communicate. We're not trying to advocate, that's not our job. When we come, the 9 people in the Warrant Committee who come to town meeting get 1 vote each, just as you do.
And to that point, sorry, when you get the warrant report in the mail, it's a big piece of paper, right?
Yes.
A lot of people might save it, for nighttime reading. Just go to the warrant committee's write-up, because a lot of it might be a little difficult to read. But if you go to the warrant committee's write-up, it gives you the cliff notes.
Yes.
It gives you, the warrant committee has done the homework over the past year, so that you don't have to, right?
Right.
And those cliff notes help inform you as to how you should make a decision to vote.
Yes.
We make your job easy. All you have to do is show up, right?
Exactly. Well said. Well said. And I would just add, I said, if you happen to be watching this video, congratulations. You've taken an interest in our town, in our finances, and there will be a second one that will follow this, which will get into some of the key articles that we didn't cover. This was primarily our fiscal status. It's the operating budget, the most important article. But there's all sorts of other important articles that we'll get into in the second video. So, anything else you want to say?
No, just thank you for anyone who's participating and engaging in this, and if you have more questions, we do have a website that if you have any questions that you want to address prior to the town meeting, if you send it to the website of the Warrant Committee, we will discuss it and address it as best we can.
Right. And all our meetings and minutes, the video recordings of every single meeting and the minutes are all on our website too. So, thank you very much for paying attention and tuning in, and look for our second video. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Ash.
Thank you.